Hello and welcome to Legal Bites. If you're new here, my name is Alita. I'm a lawyer licensed in California and DC, and on this channel, we explain the law one bite at a time. We don't give legal advice, but we do talk about how the law works and try to look into our crystal ball to see how things might turn out. If you're enjoying this on YouTube, we'd love it if you could like the video, subscribe to the channel, share it with friends, all the great YouTube-y stuff. And if you want to listen while out and about, we're now offering our live streams in podcast form where you can leave a rating and review. Links are in the description below, as well as to our clips channel where you can find some of the best clips taken from our live streams. Otherwise, if you want to catch me elsewhere, you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And if you want to support the channel, you can do so on Locals, Patreon, or by becoming a YouTube member, or by buying some really awesome Legal Bites merch. Again, all links are in the description below. And with that said, let's get into it. Hello. Oh, excuse me. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're watching from. I hope you are having a wonderful day. Happy Thursday. We're getting close to the weekend, guys. It's happening once again. Hello to everybody in the chat. I can see a bunch of folks in there. Love that folks have been hanging out and having conversation for quite a while now. It's great. I love to see a lot of YouTube members as well in there. Excited to see you guys tomorrow in our Bite Club exclusive live stream. So I hope you guys will be able to make it there tomorrow. But otherwise, to everyone else as well, welcome. I hope you're having a great day so far and a great week so far. So we have not been talking about the two cases that are the subject of this live stream because there's just been so many other things going on lately. We live streamed the last couple of days, the last bits of the Darrell Brooks trial. That was definitely interesting is one way to put it. Very emotional, wide range of emotions for a lot of folks watching that. But it was good. It was good to see that justice was served and all that kind of stuff. So it was good to see the end of that. But now we've got some stuff that we've been covering that we've been sort of tracking for a while that we haven't been able to talk about because we've been focused on these other things that have come up. So let's get into the Weinstein trial and the Masterson trial. But before we do that, let's say hi to some folks in the chat. Mary M, greetings from Munich. Indian summer and Sahara dust on the way. Good to see you. Happy to see you from Munich. We've also got Karen C from Yorkshire, UK. We've got Pamela C from Arizona. Let's see. Let's keep going through here. We've got Spetty Ross from Boston, Massachusetts. We've got B19 from Alabama's Gulf Coast. Love it. We've got Janneke Vandelaar, right? Vandelaar from Netherlands. Iris from New York. Love to see it. J for Jen from Oregon. And let's see. Oh, we've got Bumblebee Susan from Oklahoma. We've got Rebecca Bone from who says she's having a cloudy morning in Minnesota. Secret McSquirrel from Glasgow. Otterly Bell from Sweden. And Catherine K from Germany. Love to see it. So happy to see you guys. Oh, we've also got Sokotoa from California. Hope you're doing well. Okay, and Andy the Game Maker, thanks for the super chat. It says, hit the like button, peeps. Love it. Okay, so, and I'm seeing more people in the chat saying where they're coming in from. I always love to see it. I love to see where people are coming in from. Okay, but let's already get into it because there's a lot of trial that's been happening in both of these cases. We haven't even gotten into any of the substance of the Weinstein trial. That one, they've had opening statements. They've started to get into testimony in that one. Danny Masterson, we started to talk about before, but we got to some of the testimony, right? We talked about the opening statements, and then we talked about Jane Doe 1 and her testimony. And this is, for both of these cases, again, as we go through these articles, I'm doing my best to try to pull from news articles. That's a massive limitation, obviously, because we can't see for ourselves what's happening in the courtroom. We can't evaluate the witnesses for ourselves to determine whether we find them to be credible or not. And these kinds of cases are very particularly unique in that effect, I think, is maybe one way to say it, because a lot of these things that happen are in these intimate moments, right? Where there's not generally going to be a lot of witnesses. This is something that's what these cases are very different from Daryl Brooks, for example, where there's video footage of the incident when it happened. So they're able to like basically just show a lot of photos and videos as that incident was happening to show and to put on their case. And, you know, to corroborate all of the testimony that people give. But in cases like this, it really oftentimes comes down to the witnesses and the kind of credibility that we think that they have as we're going through. I mean, obviously, you know, we can try to pick things out as we're reading these articles to see, you know, how they react to cross-examination, what kind of responses they give for certain decisions that they've made. Do those seem like they make sense? Do those seem like they don't make sense? And that was what we saw with the Kevin Spacey trial, with some of the things that Anthony Rapp had said about, you know, for example, seeing Kevin Spacey movies over the years, and then suddenly in 2017 having PTSD from the experience before, you know, things like that didn't quite line up in certain ways, that seemed like they were, I don't know. They brought questions at the very least. So then we were able to kind of put those pieces together to say, I'm not sure if this is really going to end up working out for Anthony Rapp. And then, you know, we find out the verdict. So maybe we can do that with some of these articles today as we continue covering the Weinstein trial and the Masterson trial. So let's start with Weinstein, since that one is a little bit further behind. And so we've got some, oh, how do we, okay. I'm sorry. I'm trying to do multiple things at once again. Okay. So we've got even opening statements that we have to go through in this one. Okay. Let's get started. So this is from KTLA 75. And this is talking about the Weinstein trial and their opening statements. So we're already going back a few days ago as they are covering from earlier in the week. Okay. Opening statements begin in Harvey Weinstein's Los Angeles trial. A prosecutor told jurors Monday that the stories of the women who will testify that Harvey Weinstein essayed them tell uncannily similar stories of themselves as young, aspiring women who were cornered in hotel rooms by a man who, at the time, was the definition of Hollywood power. Each of these women came forward independent of each other, and none of them knew one another, Deputy District Attorney Paul Thompson said during his opening statement at Weinstein's Los Angeles trial. That is something that is an important piece, I think, to put in front of the jury, right? Because where we are talking about multiple accusations against a defendant, we're talking about the possibility of collusion. Not to say that is what is happening, but there's always a let's call it a theoretical statistical possibility, right? And so we that's one of the things that we need to be working through as we're evaluating a case like this, to say, did these people even know each other? Did these people communicate with one another? If they did, then you kind of have to dig into what were these communications? Is there any possibility that they have lined up their stories with one another for malicious reasons and in a way that is not factually accurate according to what actually happened? Because there is a possibility that people can have a malicious plan to try to take someone down. But if you can show from the evidence that none of them knew one another when they made their statements to the police, and that their statements to the police were consistent with what they have been saying moving forward, then that is a pretty solid point for the prosecution, in my opinion. Okay. Weinstein, Thompson said, lorded his power over them, talking about the female A-list actors whose careers he had made before growing aggressive. Let me zoom in just a little bit here so we can make sure that everybody can see everything. I want to make sure this font is legible. Okay. Thompson played a video presentation that showed composite photos of the four women with quotes from prior testimonials displayed. Most were aspiring actors. One was an aspiring screenwriter who thought she was going to pitch a script to, quote, the most powerful man in Hollywood, unquote, at the time, Thompson said, referring to Weinstein. One was a masseuse with a famous clientele of actors and athletes who Weinstein suggested might write a book for his company's publishing arm before later cornering her in the bathroom. And I will say, because it has come up in comments before in the Kevin Spacey case, that the use of the word masseuse, I think, is somewhat controversial because it's like a sexualized term for it. But I'm reading it because that's what is in this article. I think the term that people that work in this industry prefer to call it a masseur. I think you guys can correct me if that's incorrect. That was new to me. So that was me getting educated. So I'm happy to call it either one. All will testify that Weinstein ignored clear signs that the women didn't consent, the prosecutor said, including they're shaking bodies, they're crying, they're backing away from him, they're saying no. She said he assaulted one woman after she showed him pictures of her children in an attempt to get him to stop. Okay. And this is something like they're shaking bodies, they're crying. If this happens on the stand, this is something that might be in the mind of the jury as they are evaluating the testimony going for, oh, okay. So I see in the chat, massage therapist. Okay. We prefer massage therapist. Okay. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay. Then I will use that moving forward. Okay. Cool. Thanks, guys. Thank you. It's more gender neutral too. Okay. And professional. Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay. So when we're talking about the visuals that come up in an opening statement, this is something that they want to try to bring up in the mind of the jury throughout the trial as well, right? So we're talking about someone who's going to be observing all of these people who will be saying that they were shaking, they were crying, they were backing away from him, they were saying no, that if they are on the stand and visibly upset as they are talking about it as well, that is going to be another sort of piece of that's going to be another piece of the testimony that the jury is going to be evaluating as well, that if there is that added similarity. I'm not saying that people should sort of add those emotional elements to testimony to try to like inauthentically do something like that. But yeah, if it does fit, then that's something that will be helpful for the prosecution. Weinstein has denied any non-consensual sex and has pleaded not guilty to the charges. He was brought into court Monday by deputies in a wheelchair, wearing a black suit and blue tie. Before jurors entered, he climbed into a chair at the defense table with his lawyers and watched the prosecution's presentation from there. His lawyer is set to give its opening statement on Monday afternoon. It's expected to be followed by testimony from the first of the accusers, an Italian model and actor who says Weinstein R-ed her at the Los Angeles hotel in 2013. Confusion arose in the courtroom, however, when Thompson, during his opening statement, made no mention of one accuser who had been set to testify as recently as last week. Weinstein was indicted on 11 counts overall, but 4 of those counts, including 2 counts of R-ing and 2 of SA, involved the woman who was not included at the opening. The district attorney's office did not address why the 5th accuser was not referenced in Thompson's opening statement, already serving a 23-year-old sentence for a conviction in New York. The 70-year-old movie mogul now faces a trial in the city where he was once a colossus during Hollywood's award season. The 4 accusers who will testify in the case are expected to be identified only as Jane Doe. Jennifer Siebel Newsom, an actor and documentary filmmaker who is married to California Governor Gavin Newsom, is among the accusers. Siebel Newsom was the first accuser Thompson described in his opening, saying that though she appears to be in a powerful place now, at the time of her assault, she was just like the other women Weinstein targeted. 17 years ago, when she met the defendant in 2005, she was a powerless actor trying to make her way in Hollywood, Thompson said. And this is an important thing that they have to do, right? We've talked about this before with these kinds of cases because we're talking about also the passage of time. So the power dynamics may have shifted between Weinstein and these other individuals because Weinstein has his physically deteriorated, right? His health is failing. He's been wheeled into the courtroom, which I'm glad to see that they are putting him in the chair before the jury comes in, so that that is not something that is going to be sort of like used as a prop for sympathy, or to sort of like imply that he's always been this like feeble person, because that's one of the key pieces here, right? Is that he's been forcing his way on these women, and so they have to do some work to show that the way that these individuals appear now and the sort of statures that each of them have right now is not what they had at the time back in 2013 or back in 2005, whenever these things actually happened. Okay. In an attempt to head off potential defense strategies, Thompson told jurors they would hear from a psychologist who will dispel R-ing myths. And again, I have zero problem with using the word. It's just I don't want to get tripped up by the YouTube algorithm here. So we're talking about these very sensitive topics, and we're working our way through them as sensitively as we can, and it helps if you don't use certain buzzwords that the algorithm hates. Key among them is the idea that an SA victim would not have further contact with their assailant. Many of the accusers had contact and even initiated dealings with Weinstein in the years that followed their assault. Sybil Newsom sent him emails. I'm going to say massage therapist, even though they use the masseuse. The massage therapist worked for him again. Thompson said the jury will learn that's not unusual under the circumstances. 4 other women will testify at trial that Weinstein SA'd them, though their accusations did not lead to criminal charges. In his opening presentation and a possible hint to his trial strategy, Thompson paired each of them to one of the four accusers based on the similarity of their stories. The Associated Press does not normally name people, okay, who say they've been SA'd unless they've agreed to be named publicly, as Sybil Newsom has through her attorney. Okay. The trial opened 2 weeks ago with jury selection, 5 years after women's stories about him gave massive momentum to the Me Too movement. Okay. So that's the first piece here. So from the beginning, it does look like they are. I mean, we can't really get the full opening statement here because obviously we're talking about, this is being sort of watered down by the journalists here. But I want to make sure that I thought this was going to talk about both opening statements. Let me see here. Okay. Sorry, guys. I'm going to add one more here so that we can see if we can actually get a piece of his opening statement, because I want to see what his theory of the case was. Okay. Okay. No, this is a very old article. Okay. Wait a minute. Okay. Sorry, guys. I have a ton of articles prepared here, but this one left me wanting just a little bit more. And the next one goes right into testimony. So I want to see. Okay, maybe we won't be able to get it because I can't find any articles that are actually talking about it. Okay, well, anyway, let's see. Maybe it'll come up in this next article, but I will then share the screen for the next one so that we can get into the testimony, because now we're already getting into some of the Secret McSquirrel. No, I haven't caught Runkle's COVID. I had it last Christmas before. I can't remember. Yeah, I think it was last Christmas I had it. So hopefully that means I'm not going to get it anytime soon. But for me, it was relatively mild though. But yeah. Anyway, no, that's just a little bit of a dry throat. Okay, so here's the next article where we're talking about the testimony that starts to come in, and let's see if we can put together how this testimony is coming across based on how this has been written. And again, the difficulty here is that things can always be not misinterpreted, but they can always be framed in a certain way that important pieces of this are excluded. Okay. This one is from Variety. It's called First Woman to Testify in Harvey Weinstein Trial Breaks Down on the Stand, Telling Jury She Was Afraid He Could Kill Her During the Alleged R-ing. The first woman to testify in Harvey Weinstein's Los Angeles trial broke down in tears, crying and breathing uncontrollably as she faced the jury to detail her sexual assault and rape allegations against the former Hollywood producer and already convicted rapist. So, yeah. So what I talked about for the opening statement is that the visual of them, shaking, crying, all that kind of stuff, if that shows up again on the stand, this is very helpful to the prosecution, because that kind of emotional reaction of them reliving it on the stand helps to sort of hit the jury with the potential legitimacy of those emotions and of those feelings and of those visible signals. The witness, known as Jane Doe number 1, was the first to be called by the prosecution. The woman is a foreign actress whose first language is not English. She speaks Russian, Italian, and English, though her translator accompanied her in the courtroom and was utilizing her during testimony. The woman claims she was assaulted by Weinstein in February 2013 when she was on a business trip in Los Angeles to attend the Los Angeles Italia Film Festival during Oscars weekend as a celebrity guest of the festival's founder, Pascal Vicedomini. As a popular model and TV host in Italy, Jane Doe number 1 said she was required to walk red carpets at the festival, occupy VIP sections of the theater, and attend exclusive industry dinner parties, which sounds like that probably is just part of the contract for her being there and for being sort of the guest of honor, the celebrity guest, I guess. She told the jury, at the time of the alleged incident, Jane Doe number 1 had only met Weinstein briefly, and the two had barely spoken to each other, she said. She told the jury that after she had walked the red carpet and attended a festival event where Al Pacino and David O. Russell were guests of honor, she went back to her hotel, Mr. C. Beverly Hills. Shortly after, Weinstein allegedly showed up unannounced to her hotel and forced his way into her room. That is terrifying. That is absolutely terrifying. I see in the chat that according to House and Habit, thanks, Laura. According to House and Habit, they'll be seeing a pic of his deformed something or other today, which is interesting to me because, and I think that is to show. I think that the reason for that is to show proof that she actually saw that and that she could identify it because it's has some unique qualities. And so that helps to lend credibility to the women that are testifying to these things. Susie Hilfiger, thanks so much for becoming a YouTube member and welcome to Bike Club. I hope that you'll be able to join us tomorrow in our Bike Club member stream. So thanks so much for joining us. So yeah, I can see outrage in the chat about that. The potential introduction of some photographs. And yeah, that's a very, very uncomfortable part of this trial. But like I said, it's one of those things that can help sort of identify it. That's something that was also apparently, I think in oh gosh, what's her name? I'm totally thinking on the fly right now. But President Clinton, when he had a lawsuit by what's her name? Not Monica Lewinsky, but the other one that ended up suing and getting a rather large settlement, I think. I think that was one of the things that ended up helping her and get a settlement against him was the fact that she was able to describe in great detail what it looked like to a certain unique degree. Paula Jones. Thank you, guys. Thank you. That was Paula Jones. That was, if I remember correctly. Okay. Alrighty. After returning to her hotel alone and undressing into a robe to get ready for bed, the hotel lobby called her room to say she had a guest who was Weinstein. I said I didn't expect any guests, Jane Doe number one recalled to the jury. I was confused. I didn't understand what he was doing in the hotel. She testified that she does not know how Weinstein knew her whereabouts or what hotel she was staying at, since she had only spoken a few words to him at the festival earlier in the night, and he was essentially a stranger, she explained. She told the hotel staff that she could come downstairs, but Weinstein refused that offer. The next thing she knew, he was knocking on her door and loudly announcing himself. He said, "I want to talk to you." Through tears, she told jurors that she opened the door so that he would stop knocking because the noise was so loud. She was embarrassed that other hotel guests might hear the commotion. He just walked in, she said. I was really confused. I didn't understand what was going on. I remember thinking, did he follow me? I don't know him. I mean, her instinct seems to be correct, right? That she says, I will meet him down in the lobby. This is strange. But yeah, this is pretty awful to be going through. The woman alleges that Weinstein forced himself into the room and sat next to her on the bed. He took off his jacket and asked her to give him a massage. I asked him to go, she said, saying that Weinstein didn't listen and instead moved closer to her. When he came to the bed, he became a different person, she testified. I started to be more direct and ask him to go away. In an effort to get Weinstein to leave, she had told him that she was a mother of 3 and showed him photos of her children on her phone. She recalled asking him to leave repeatedly. He became more physical, she said when asked by the prosecutor. Deputy DA Paul Thompson how Weinstein's behavior changed, sharing that he tried to take off her robe. And there are certain parts that I'm actually not going to be reading in detail here. I will say now, because this is there's going to be some detail here. But this part I can read. He opened his pants, he held my hand, and he was touching himself, she said. I was panicked. I was panicking and started crying. He didn't care. Jane Doe number one then alleged that Weinstein took off his pants. I was terrified, she testified. I was afraid. He was treating my room as his home and treating me not human. I was asking him please to leave. Crying and taking deep breaths on the stand, it appeared to be difficult for Jane Doe number one to continue her testimony. When she was questioned further by the prosecutors, she went into gruesome detail of her allegations. And so here we're gonna sort of modify a few things just for the sake of the YouTube algorithm and, you know, G ratings, not G ratings, PG-13 ratings is, I guess, what we'll say. Okay. He had a problem with his something, she told the jurors. And then he gave her a certain instruction of what to do with it. She says Weinstein, only wearing his shirt, grabbed her hair and pulled her head towards his private part. She continued, he forced me to do what he asked. I was crying, choking. Jane Doe number one's testimony came after opening statements on Monday from the prosecution and defense. In their opening statement, Weinstein's legal team told the jury that while Jane Doe number one claims she was assaulted by Weinstein, she attended a party thrown by the Weinstein Company years after the alleged incident and proudly posted a photo from the red carpet onto her own social media. When asked about this, she said that her PR manager had posted the photo without her approving the caption, which was par for the course in her business as a public figure. So, yeah. So this is one of those times where there's you know, a potential bad fact that comes out at trial, right? So she went through this harrowing experience. Then, you know, what happened with this later Weinstein event that she goes to and she posts a photo for it. how does that play with her fear of this person after this event, after this whole harrowing experience? How does that square with it, right? So she says that the social media post was posted by her PR manager. That sounds like that's pretty common for people in this industry, right? They don't manage their own social media profiles by themselves. So this is something that is seems like a very reasonable explanation to me. And it could be given the relative power that Weinstein had in the industry. It could be that she had to go to this event. So to me, that does seem like a reasonable explanation. On Tuesday, Jane Doe number one continued her testimony, which lasted the entire day, ending in the middle of cross examination by Weinstein's attorney, Alan Jackson. I want to apologize for my breakdown yesterday, Jane Doe number one said Tuesday morning, addressing the jury. Unfortunately, I cannot control this. On her second day on the stand, Jane Doe, and this is something also, by the way, that her saying that could be feeling of embarrassment, feeling of, vulnerability in front of a room of strangers to go through this whole experience all over again. And so her body language at the time when she did break down, and then her body language at the time that she apologizes, is like, that's the kind of stuff that the jury is going to be picking up on to see if that is legit, if it seems sincere, right? On her second day on the stand, Jane Doe number one went into more detail on the alleged R-ing, recalling that after Weinstein forced her to perform certain acts on him on the hotel bed, he inserted his fingers into a certain area as she tried to squirm away from him through tears. He put my face into his certain body part. I was trying to do what he asked me to do, but I was crying, she said. His eyes changed. His behavior changed. I was physically afraid of him, she said, estimating that Weinstein was 100 to 150 pounds heavier than her 120-pound stature at the time. He was giving me orders. I was crying repeatedly, saying, no, 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 no. Yeah, I'm not going to lie. This is hard to read through. It's hard. And I as difficult as it probably is to be someone observing this in real time, I wish I could to evaluate the testimony myself. But so far, there's nothing about this that comes across to me as insincere, at least from what I can read, right? There's nothing that tips me off that seems strange. She then testified that Weinstein brought her to the hotel room, bent her over the sink, stood behind her, stared in the mirror, and began to do something on himself before he R'd her. He asked her to look in the mirror, she said. Ugh. Oh, God. He put the fingers inside of me, my private part, she said. I was moving and didn't let him. He held me and he tried to do something with his something, but I was moving and crying and I said no. She recalls Weinstein saying nasty comments like, come on, you're not a little girl. Tell me you like it. Ugh, this is so difficult. She said she held her head down and he pulled her hair. He asked me if I liked it and if I was if I had a certain biological response. She told the jurors, I wanted to die. It was disgusting. It was humiliating. No kidding. She told the prosecutor that she regrets not fighting back more. I would just freeze, she explained, adding that she was afraid he would try to beat me or kill me. God. Jane Doe number one told the jury that she was hysterical. Weinstein was getting upset, or that while she was hysterical, Weinstein was getting upset because he was having a problem getting a certain biological response on himself. I think at that point, I gave up, she said. I wanted it to end. She immediately called her children's nanny in Italy to tell her what had happened. She said she also told one of her close girlfriends in the days following the alleged incident, as well as her priest. I confessed to my priest, she said. We're a religious family. So that is something that also lends credibility to her testimony, right? The fact that she immediately called her nanny, immediately called her priest, which is like, I mean, that's it's so tragic that she felt the need to confess to her priest, because the reason for that is not to make a complaint, but to say, I have done something wrong. And so that speaks to the guilt that a lot of SA victims will feel after an incident like this that is quite common. Jen, thanks so much for becoming a YouTube member, and welcome to Bike Club. I hope to see you tomorrow at our Bike Club exclusive hangout stream. But thanks so much for becoming a member. So, after the alleged R-ing, when she was still in LA for the festival, she unexpectedly saw Weinstein at an event where he presented an award to Quentin Tarantino. In the theater, Jane Doe number 1 was seated at Tarantino, and an actor was seated near Tarantino and actor Christoph Waltz. She told the jury she was not aware Weinstein would be there, and she felt like she can't breathe when she saw him and did not interact with him. That's hard. She somberly told the jury that she had difficulty proceeding with her life after the alleged assault, but she tried to continue as normal, though there were dark days, quote unquote. She began drinking more than usual. Some days she could not shower or brush her teeth. Some of the days after what happened to me, I was destroying myself, punished myself, she said. I felt guilty because I opened that door. This is something that is common in these kinds of cases. In 2017, Jane Doe number 1 was back at the Los Angeles Italia Film Festival and unexpectedly saw Weinstein again at another business event. She said Weinstein sat near her at a festival dinner, which made her feel out of her mind. So she stood up and stepped outside on the balcony until Weinstein had left the restaurant. I was afraid of him. I was afraid for my life. I was afraid for my kids. I was afraid for my reputation. God. Years later, when her teenage daughter had a problem of her own with a young man at school, Jane Doe number 1 revealed to her daughter that she had been R-ed in her past, sharing that she understood what her daughter was going through. She told the jury that her daughter convinced her to file a police report. Ultimately, she went to the police to report the alleged incident with Weinstein in October 2017. And that also seems consistent for me as well. You know, I don't know if they plan to call the daughter to the stand about that conversation, but that seems like a legitimate sort of trigger for her to file a police report on her own, because, you know, Me Too movement, that's you know, the most obvious reason that most of us would think of. But when someone has an independent kind of reason, and that's a pretty compelling one, right, is a mother's conversation with her teenage daughter about these kinds of topics, and the daughter encouraging her to be strong and file a report. It's the kind of thing that could give a woman and a mother the strength, the encouragement to actually ultimately go and do that where they had fear before. Because if you can't do it for yourself, maybe you do it for your daughter, right? For your teenage daughter who is encountering these kinds of similar situations. So I will say for this, this so far seems very reasonable. Obviously we can't, like I'll say it a million times, obviously we can't evaluate her testimony by seeing her, by looking at her body language to see if that all feels like it fits. But so far, the story that she is telling, it fits. It fits this kind of a pattern of how this might happen, how this might go about, how she might go for some time before filing a report, and what would ultimately give her the courage to go and file the report eventually. After Jane Doe number 1's grueling testimony, Weinstein's attorney, Jackson, cross-examined her for over an hour on Tuesday afternoon. When court is back in session on Wednesday, that cross-examination will resume. Okay, unfortunately, they don't have anything about the cross-examination here in this article. I wish that they did, because that is like as difficult as it is. That is something that we want to know. So that's why we've got another article. Okay, one more here. As the defense cross-examines the first witness. Okay. Now this one is from The Guardian. It says Harvey Weinstein trial, witness breaks down as defense digs into lack of proof. It says the woman cried while answering no to the defense attorney's questions on her having any evidence she was assaulted. Well, and part of something that the jury will be instructed on is that they are allowed to evaluate just her testimony and use that as all the proof that they need as to whether or not this happened. So, they can, the defense attorney can cross-examine. They can obviously press in very uncomfortable ways, but at the end of the day, the jury can just use her testimony. That is enough. An attorney for Harvey Weinstein hammered a woman with questions on Wednesday about the lack of forensic evidence that the movie magnate arred her in 2013. You don't have any physical evidence to present to this jury that any of this happened to you, do you? Lawyer Alan Jackson asked pointedly during cross-examination. Any photos? Jackson asked. No, the woman answered. Any video? No, she replied, then added, do you think somebody after R-ing makes a video? Which is a very good point. She cried while answering no to a series of similar questions about whether she had any documentation of bruises, scrapes, cuts, or handprints on her face from Weinstein holding her down, or had been given an essay examination. Which, I mean, this is the uncomfortable part of being the defense attorney in this kind of a case, right? Is that these are legitimate questions, right? Did you go to see a doctor? Did you go to get evaluated? Which is not to say that every single victim in these kinds of cases needs to do that immediately, or else they lose their case and they lose all credibility, because that's a very difficult thing for someone to do when they've just been through this harrowing experience, right? Like she already testified the previous day that, for days she was sleeping, she was drinking, she was harming her body because she felt like that she had been somehow responsible for this. So why, if someone is feeling that way, why would they go to the doctor to preserve evidence, so to speak, of it? I would encourage anyone that encounters a situation like that to do so, because that really helps their case. But I will say, I completely understand that is a very difficult standard to have. Do you have any physical evidence that you were even with Mr. Weinstein? Jackson asked. Her crying grew louder as she answered, I had his jacket, but I gave it away. She maintains that Weinstein left her jacket in the room and she gave it to hotel staff, but no lost and found records have been discovered to demonstrate it. I don't know that would be in any lost and found records, because I've had friends and family that have worked in hotels before. They've worked as, as staff in various hotels. And when they're luxury hotels, when they are, you've got all kinds of celebrity clientele that come through there, they give things away all the time that are just random items. And it's like almost like a version of like a tip, so to speak. So those things don't really get documented. That has it's the kind of thing that's like, it's almost like it's an under the table kind of payment, right? Like an unofficial kind of payment. So I would not expect that to be in any kind of lost and found record, because she said that she gave it to a hotel staff. Not necessarily as like someone lost this, but like, here you go, take this. The woman, a model and actor who was working in Rome, is the first of Weinstein's accusers to testify at the trial and spent portions of 3 days on the witness stand. She described the alleged R-ing in emotional testimony on Tuesday, saying that it left her wanting to destroy herself. She said Weinstein forced her to perform certain acts on her hotel bed. I was kind of hysterical through tears, she said. I kept saying, no, no, no. Prosecutors have presented photographs and other evidence that both Weinstein and the woman were at the Los Angeles Italia Film Festival, which she had come to California to attend in February 2013. But they have not yet produced anything that puts Weinstein at her hotel on the night she says he forced her to perform certain acts on her bed and then R'd her in the bathroom. The woman did not go to police until October 2017, when an outpouring of R-ing and SA accusations against Weinstein made him the central figure in the Me Too movement. And that's a point for the defense, right? Is to say like, look, he was already a target. So there could be 100 legitimate accusations, but this could be an illegitimate one. She has denied that she was influenced by those stories to go to the police and that she had decided to file a report earlier that year at the urging of her teenage daughter. The woman is going only by Jane Doe 1 in court. Her age and birthplace have also been kept out of court proceedings, though she has said her first language was Russian and she was living at the time with her 3 children in Italy. Weinstein's defense tried to poke holes in her testimony and press on inconsistencies in previous accounts she gave to police, to prosecutors, to a grand jury, and in the first 2 days of her trial testimony. They highlighted the positive Instagram posts she made in the days after the alleged R-ing, including one selfie apparently taken in the bathroom where she says Weinstein R'd her. At one point, which, I mean, yeah, we talked about that before. Well, let me keep reading before I comment. At one point, Jackson, the defense attorney, read aloud the hashtags on one of her Instagram posts, which were about looking good and summer. The woman repeatedly responded that she was trying to keep up appearances for her career. I was trying to act like nothing happened, she said, which sounds reasonable, honestly. The woman told prosecutor Paul Thompson that she had been having panic attacks and had hardly slept or eaten since her testimony began on Monday afternoon and finally ended late on Wednesday. Weinstein has pleaded not guilty to 11 counts of R-ing and SA involving 5 women. Multiple women are set to testify about Weinstein's alleged crimes, including Jennifer Siebel Newsom, a documentary filmmaker and actor who is now married to the governor of California, Gavin Newsom. The disgraced film producer is already serving a 23-year sentence after being convicted of sex crimes in New York in February 2020. So this happened allegedly in 2013. Prosecution has not been able to place him at the hotel with other evidence, right? Other corroborating evidence. Is it helpful for them to have that? Absolutely. Absolutely it is. I mean, that would be the thing that would really, really solidify this testimony, or at least one of the things that would really solidify this testimony. If she had gone to a doctor like the next day for trauma care, to get a rape kit, for example, that would be something that would really, really help her testimony. Is it necessary to convict him for this count? No, it's not, because her testimony, I mean, as it's being described, even in the cross-examination, they're talking about how she's continuing to cry as she's testifying on cross-examination. The emotion seems like it's still there. When it comes to someone showing emotion on the stand, sometimes the suddenness of it coming on or the suddenness of it going away is usually something that you can look at to say, this doesn't feel authentic, right? Because when somebody feels emotion, it'll come over like a wave and it'll go out like a wave, right? Which means that it'll linger for a while. It's hard to just turn it off. That's something that would indicate that it's maybe not authentic. So, but if through this experience she's reliving this and she's showing emotion, and as she's answering questions on cross-examination, she's continuing to feel that emotion, to me, that could indicate that she's really still living in that moment, which would mean that is real. So that's the Weinstein case so far. Let's now turn to the Danny Masterson case. All right. Gonna first go with this one. No, this one. Okay. Here we go. Okay. This is another one from Variety. And this one is from a couple days ago. Now, in the Masterson case, apparently they were not at trial yesterday. I'm not exactly sure why, but they weren't at trial yesterday. So we've just got a couple days of catch up on this one. So before we talked about the opening statements in this case, and we talked about the first witness testimony from Jane Doe number 1 in that case, which obviously is going to be a different Jane Doe number 1 than the one in the Weinstein case, or at least we can assume that, because these are two completely unrelated cases, although they're happening at the same time in the same courthouse and for similar accusations. So, okay. Jane Doe number 1 presented some pretty harrowing testimony as well in this case. She talked about how he had pulled a gun on her to keep her silent because they could hear that someone was outside. He threatened her with that, things like that sound very harrowing as we're reading it. And again, the issue here is the fact that we can't see the testimony, so we can't evaluate it for ourselves. But let's continue on to see if there's anything that sort of comes up with any kind of inconsistencies here. Okay. Danny Masterson, R-ing accuser, appears to have panic attack, says she feared Scientology would, quote unquote, destroy her. The second accuser in the Danny Masterson R-ing trial broke down on the stand Tuesday when describing retaliation she has faced from the Church of Scientology. The woman, a former friend of Masterson's who has been identified in court as Christina B., appeared to have a panic attack as she discussed the consequences of being declared a suppressive person. "I can't breathe," she said at one point. She testified that she reported Masterson to the church. Oh, geez. Oh, no. We've got an ad. Why is this happening? Okay. She testified that she reported Masterson to the church after he allegedly R-ed her while she was unconscious in December 2001. She said a church official told her that it was not possible to R one's girlfriend, which is absolutely 100% not true. The fact that I'm not saying that it's not true that the church official said that, but the presentation that they made to her is a false one. You can absolutely be raped by your significant other. It's actually what commonly happens in these kinds of cases. She said she was also told it was her job, or her hat, quote unquote, in Scientology terminology, to give him sex whenever he wanted. Oh my. She said a church ethics officer, Miranda Scoggins, told her that no crime was committed and that she had pulled in the negative experiences she was having. At the time, Christina B. was a practicing Scientologist, and she said she believed what she was told. There was something I was doing or something I had done to deserve what he was doing to me, she said. She explained, "We are all responsible for the condition that we're in. That is what we're taught. I still struggle with that even today." She said she was put on an ethics program and was also instructed to read material on suppressive persons. The prospect that she might be declared a suppressive person for reporting Masterson almost put me in a state of terror, she said. I just needed to do as I was told, and I was not to tell anybody, she said. She said she feared that if she went to the police, they would destroy me. Christina B. ultimately went to the LAPD in December 2016. She has since filed a lawsuit against Scientology and Masterson, alleging that she has been subject to fair game tactics and retaliation, including being stalked, followed, threatened, and run off the road. And that's another lawsuit. This is a civil case that she has with a group of other plaintiffs, where that's the basis of that lawsuit, right? Is not so much the actual claims against Masterson, but it's the retaliation that they say that they had in response to their coming forward with these allegations. That's the case that went all the way up to the Supreme Court because the Church of Scientology tried to enforce an arbitration agreement to say, no, this should go to arbitration and not be an open court. Scientology ended up losing on that. So now it's back down to the trial court, and they're in the early stages of that case as that continues forward. Christina B. Okay, sorry. Already read that. She also alleges that she was targeted on social media, subjected to credit card fraud and phone and email hacking, and that her dog was killed, which is awful, awful, awful. In her testimony, she began to cry when she said the church has treated her like a suppressive person for the last 6 years. She said she feared she would not have survived similar treatment back in 2001. What my husband and my babies have been through the last 6 years, I would not have survived it then, she said. I understood it would be bad, but I didn't understand. She then appeared to have difficulty breathing. I'm trying to calm my panic, she said. The court took a break while she was consoled by a victim advocate from the DA's office. Christina B. began her testimony on Monday, telling the jury that she awoke one night in November 2001 to find Masterson was R-ing her. She said she grabbed him by the hair and that he hit her face. When he got off of her, she said he spit on her and called her white trash. She testified Tuesday afternoon that she did not tell anyone else about the incident until 2010 or 2011 when she disclosed it to her husband. She said she later called the RAIN hotline for sexual assault and came to the realization that she had in fact been R'd. Oh yeah, sorry. I can definitely increase the font size. Sorry, guys. I just saw that comment in the chat. Okay. And this is a weak point for her case here, right? Is not telling anyone about it until 2010 or 2011. If it happened back in 2001, that's a long time to wait to tell anyone, right? Because it's different, for example, from what we just read in the Masterson case, where the Italian model, or model from Italy, I should say. We don't know if she's actually Italian, but the model who had been living in Rome, right? She says that she immediately called her nanny. She immediately confessed to her priest about the situation. When I say confessed, I'm using that as a very literal term of what that process is, of talking to a priest about something that you have just gone through or something that you have done. Usually the intent of that is to confess your sins, but the term for that is confession, right? Even though in her case, it sounds like she had nothing to confess, right? Because if you are a victim, there's nothing to confess, right? There's nothing to be responsible for if someone has done something to you. Even though it's very common for victims in these kinds of cases to feel a sense of responsibility, to feel like they should have done something different. My view changed, she said. I believed a crime did occur. And that's something also, by the way, that is something that has come up quite a bit in the Manson cases, right? Where it seems like there's been several different people have either said that they only later realized that something was an SA, or or they only later remembered that a certain account had happened. Those two are very different, right? Because one is always remembering an event that happened. The other one is the other one is recharacterizing how you view it, how you view your responsibility level, the responsibility level of this other person that was involved in the incident. So a later recharacterization is apparently very common in these kinds of cases too. And it's not something that I would say would decrease the legitimacy or credibility of the testifying witness. So, but a later, like a sudden realization that like, oh, this event happened when it's not something that happened in childhood is relatively uncommon. That's my understanding. So, like I said, this coming up only in 2010 or 2011, if she hadn't told anyone else, if she hadn't told anyone at the church, she hadn't told anyone else, before this point, that is potentially a problem for her. Does it mean that she automatically loses? No, it doesn't. But it is a difference from the last story that we were talking about. My view changed, she said. I believed a crime did occur. Philip Cohen, Masterson's lawyer, began his cross-examination by exploring discrepancies between her testimony and her initial interview with the prosecutor. As he paced back and forth, Christina B. interrupted and asked him to stop walking near Masterson. When you walk to the side of the courtroom, I don't want to look over there, she said. Cohen agreed to ask his questions from the podium. The trial will resume on Thursday. That's an interesting point. That she asked if he would stop walking in that direction because she wants to be able to like tunnel vision, right? And that could be an act, that could be legitimate. Like I said, it comes down to the jury's evaluation of her credibility and how she comes across when she says these things. Okay, let's do the next article here. Okay, Danny Masterson, R-ing accuser, rips Scientology for telling her no crime was committed after reporting it. Okay, this one is from Fox News. The tangled and intricate web between disgraced That 70s Show actor Danny Masterson and the Church of Scientology became clearer in court on Tuesday when an alleged R-ing victim of Masterson's testified that not only had she reported the R-ing to the church, but also had been told the expectation was to give him sex whenever he wanted, per Variety. So, okay, so let me backtrack here. So she hadn't. So I wish that they had clarified this when they read it, when they wrote it in the last article, because it said that in 2010, 2011, that was the first time she told anyone else. But you guys, I think there were people in the chat that were talking about that she had reported it. She had reported it to Scientology, and they had said you've got to give him sex whenever he wanted it, right? Which is just such a horrible thing. To be told, for anyone to be told in any kind of circumstance, right? But especially for her in this circumstance, in response to her doing, her reporting this kind of thing. So, but it wasn't clear from the last article when they say that she had reported it. Because it doesn't say in this article, and it didn't say in the last article. The victim, a former Scientologist herself, says she was dating Masterson at the time of the assault. She shared in court that she awoke to Masterson R-ing her, to which she grabbed his hair, then he slapped and spit on her. Hey, hi. Hi, puppy. How are you doing? Hello. I'll feed you soon. Don't worry. Indy seriously runs on a food timer. She knows. At a certain point, she says, I'm hungry. I'm done. Okay. The victim, visibly uncomfortable on the stand, said in court that she couldn't breathe and was trying to calm her panic while recalling the incident that allegedly took place in November 2001. Oh, geez. Oh, geez. Okay. Hello. Hello. Hi, puppy. Hi, puppy. Hi. Indy's coming in to give everybody cuddles and love because she knows that this is a very heavy subject. Okay. Hi. Hi, sweetie. Yes, I love you. I love you very much. Okay. Okay. Indy, you want to say hi to everyone? Yes, I'll give you food very soon, okay? Very, very soon. Masterson is currently facing 3 separate R-ing charges spanning between 2001 and 2003. The woman shared that while she notified the Church of Masterson's actions, an ethics officer reportedly told her no crime was committed. She also testified that the Church of Scientology did not believe a girlfriend could be AR'd by her own boyfriend. There was something I was doing or something I had done to deserve what he was doing to me. We are all responsible for the condition that we're in. This is what we're taught, she explained. And by the way, so for folks that have been following this case and following the content that we've had on this channel talking about Scientology as well, this is something that Leah Remini talked about when she was on Joe Rogan's channel as well. Is that she said that, you know, when you get to a certain level within Scientology, you finally get to learn like the core beliefs of Scientology. And so she talked about how the, you know, it's they learned that, oh hi, they learned that thetans are these beings that make up the body of a Scientologist, or maybe all individuals perhaps, but basically where they say, you know, like it's like every single part of your body is just made up of like millions of these things. And so at a certain point within Scientology, you are, when you've gone clear enough, you are able to control them and tell them what to do essentially. And so these thetans it seems like there's a connection between these thetans making up the body, and then also like you like also having this explanation of like these individuals, when something bad happens to you in life, it's because of something that you have done in a past life, or that these thetans have done in a past life, or something along those lines. So there's a connection there to what the church like basically teaches. Unfortunately, that means that if anybody makes any kind of a complaint within the organization of something bad that's happened to them, that means, sorry, we're not going to have any justice for this. So like you need to take responsibility for the things that have happened to you. Sucks to suck, essentially. And that seems like that's the response that she got from Scientology when she reported this to them. There was something I was doing or something I had done to deserve what he was doing to me. We are all responsible for the condition that we're in. That is what we're taught, she explained. The woman told the court, oh, and I'm sorry, I will also zoom in on this one. I should remember this for each one of these. Okay, come on. There we go. Okay. The woman told the court that she believed the church would destroy her if she didn't keep her concerns to herself, and was put on an ethics program to understand what had happened to her. She was also instructed to read literature on suppressive persons, which is what she would be deemed by the church if she reported Manson. Oh, puppy. I know. I'm paying attention. I know you're hungry. The woman. Okay. So it's interesting because that sounds like an implicit threat to say like, okay, here you go. This is the response that we're giving you. And if you try to go anywhere outside of here, you are going to be a suppressive person. And this is how we're going to be treating you. Which is, that's, you know, even if no one specifically says that, by giving her that kind of literature while saying, you know, everything needs to be done in-house, that can be taken as a threat. She says that the thought of being seen as a suppressive person almost put her in a state of terror. In 2016, the victim disclosed to the LAPD a crime had taken place and subsequently sued both Masterson and the Church of Scientology. She detailed how she was now the face of severe retaliation. A representative for the Church of Scientology did not immediately return Fox News Digital's request for comment. Masterson's lawyer, Philip Cohen, had begun cross-examination by the end of Tuesday and will resume his questioning on Thursday. So that's today. So cross-examination it's California time. So it's what, 8 a.m. there now? So they haven't yet begun. But yeah, this is I'm very curious to see how this cross-examination goes in this particular case as well. But so far, I what I want to see is more explanations of why it took some time for them to come forward in this case. But having seen that they did go to Scientology first, that seems like a reasonable first response for someone that's in this kind of an organization, that's in this kind of an environment, right? So, because knowing what we know about Scientology is that it's a very closed off organization, right? Like even just the deep dive that we did a couple weeks ago now, or a week ago now, even just doing that deep dive, trying to find information on Scientology that does not come from people who have left Scientology, who have certain feelings, certain opinions about the Church of Scientology if they have since left Scientology, right? It's hard to find information if you're trying to be truly objective, to find information that comes from Scientology's side that isn't just some basic boilerplate propaganda, right? That comes across as authentic or legitimate. So, seeing that these women first went to Scientology to report these things, to try to deal with these things in-house, that seems like that would fit with this kind of an organization that is notoriously very private. So that can really do some work for the prosecution to explain why they didn't go to the police. Then the other issue is how consistent their story continues over the years. I do know that when I was catching up with some of Danny Ortega's stuff from Friday when he was talking about Jane Doe number 1. And by the way, I highly encourage people, if you want to see some more detailed stuff on the Masterson case, Danny Ortega is in the courtroom every single day. He's an independent journalist who has been covering Scientology for a very, very, very long time. His Substack is called The Underground Bunker, which I actually should link to it in. Here we go. I have it handy. Oh, wait. Okay. Okay, so I put a link in the chat to his Substack where he talks about a lot of this stuff, including the Danny Masterson trial. And so my goal after this week is to get some more content out there that is more detailed, because he provides a bit more detail in his stuff. But I was catching up with his stuff before the weekend, last weekend, and he was talking about how Jane Doe number 1 was, how she gave her account. And then when she was on cross-examination, the Cohen, Masterson's attorney, was really kind of grilling her on things that she left out in her police report, right? In the police report that she made. And saying that there was, I think it was specifically the detail of Danny Masterson pulling a gun on her that was left out of the police report. Her explanation was, I don't have any control over what the police put into that report, right? I talk to them, they make the report. But also she said that she was trying to protect Scientology. She was trying to protect David Miscavige, who's the leader of the Church of Scientology currently. And she said that she was nervous about talking to the police and giving all of that detail outside of Scientology for those reasons. And also because she didn't want to be labeled as a suppressive person, even though she basically knew that she was going to be by going to the police in the first place. So it was interesting because Danny Ortega then said that on redirect, when the prosecution came back to talk to Jane Doe number 1 on the stand, that they brought up the Scientology report from that she made to Scientology before she went to the Church of Scientology, or sorry, before she went to LAPD to report on this. And her initial report to the Church of Scientology had those details that are more consistent with what she's saying now. So it seems like, even though, like, this is one way how you can have inconsistencies in your story, but you can rehabilitate those inconsistencies by showing that there's an earlier consistency with an earlier report before you've had any contact with anybody else, right? Because that's one of the things that is very, very crucial in this case in particular. It looks like in the Weinstein case, the prosecution has already started to establish none of these women knew each other before, when they made these reports, when they went through this whole thing. None of them knew each other. So they have all been acting very independently. In Masterson, this is Masterson's chief argument here, is that they all were working together, that they concocted the story together, and that they have grudges against him and against Scientology, and that somehow Leah Remini is involved because she has a grudge against Scientology and she also has a personal grudge against Danny Masterson. This is according to the defense, right? I'm not saying this. This is according to the defense. But so this is their basic theory here, is that they have gotten together and sort of like concocted this story to take him down. The thing that disassembles that argument is that if they made these reports, these various reports, before they knew each other, before they met each other, and that those reports had consistency in their story over time, even after they met each other, then it completely takes the air out of the defense's argument to say, well, they colluded together to concoct this story. Not if that story has pre-existed their relationship with one another. So it'll be interesting to see what happens on cross-examination with Jane Doe number 2. It's Christina B. Sorry, I spent the entire time reading through it. I think it's Christina B. She also, like I said, is one of the plaintiffs in the civil suit. So anyway, that for me, that is about all I've got. I know it's a little bit of a shorter stream today, but we went through all of it. Thank you so much to everybody for hanging out with me and catching up on these 2 cases. I do see in the chat, interview Mike Rinder. I'd be interested. I'll have him on if he'd like to be on. I've got that reminds me, I've got to respond to an email or 2 from other people that have emailed me. But but anyway, as I'm like thinking through like multiple things at the same time, I'm interrupting myself. But anyway, okay, I know that this has been a very, very heavy topic today. Oftentimes we do go through heavy topics. So I want to end it on a good note, right? End this on a good note. Make sure that, if you are having a hard time with these kinds of subjects, take some time to care for yourself, take some time to love yourself, take some time to love someone else. It helps to give of yourself to someone else, especially if you do so in a way that you don't expect anything in return, especially even better if you know that they can't give you anything in return. That is one of the best ways to sort of like put good back into the world. So, whatever you can, maybe even if it's just one small act, maybe we can each do something that is good for someone else, that sort of puts a little bit more love back in this world. So if that helps to give you a sense of control in this kind of like crazy world, please, please, please do that. I empower all of you to do that as you carry this story with you throughout your day, throughout your week. So thank you to everybody in the chat that has been hanging out with me. Thank you again, as always, to the wonderful mods who are always, always, always ushering in great conversation and making sure that everybody follows the rules to agree, disagree, but do so in a way that is respectful of one another and respectful of everyone that's involved here. So love to all of you guys. And for everyone that is in Bite Club, I will see you guys tomorrow in our Bite Club exclusive live stream. Okay, guys, see you in the next video.